What's going on, guys? We're back for another episode, and today we're going to work on putting this thing back together. All of the paint cured, and for the paint on the A-arms as well as trailing arms, we did all green. And right here you can see the A-arm setup that we have. It's a and then the shock will sit somewhere right here, going up to this little mount up here. And RJ over here, he's working on getting the shock mounted up. So we have to use what are the bolts we're using?
3/8.
A 3/8. It's a grade 8 bolt because and it has to be nylock for safety regulations. But this little guy right here is a little adjustable piece, and this should add. I think the front shocks here have about is it 5 inches, give or take, travel.
Yeah, 5.
So there's a little extra adjustability. There's about 5.5 inches of travel on these float 3s, so this adds just a little more adjustability, and it goes up.
The ride height and just to
Why don't
set
you
whatever.
explain?
It's just so if we mess up on the ride height or whatever, we can kind of cover ourselves, so we can adjust the ride height and just figure out where we like to run it best.
So what is the ride height we're running right now in the front?
Right now we're at 13 inches across the whole thing. There might be a little bit more sag in the back, but that's kind of normal for Baja applications.
So as we come here, here's our seat. This is just a standard off-road seat. You can get them at Jegs for like 40 bucks. They're pretty nice. We had to do a little cutting right here. You have to have this sit flushed with the rear of the frame, so we had to cut through there and there and drill some holes in the back to get it to sit, but that's all good. And then Jason earlier went and put the sprocket and the brake and mounted those up, so that's all sitting well. We got Curtis here. He's one of the guys on the suspension team. He's basically been tasked with the rear suspension, so let's take a look at some of the components. In the previous videos, we saw that we were painting these, and they came out really well. And right here, that is the Polaris hub, and you want to talk a little bit about what we went with and why we used it?
Yeah, so this hub is a Polaris XP1000 rear hub. We went with this because it was one of the only Polaris units that ran a rear trailing arm instead of like an A-arm wishbone kind of thing. So we went with these, got them through our Polaris sponsorship. Pretty decent.
So
deal.
why did we choose to go with trailing arms over like a rear A-arms design?
We wanted to go with the trailing arms because it gives you the most travel in the rear, and in my opinion, it looks a lot better.
Oh yeah, for sure.
If anyone else cares about that, but
Aesthetics
I
is
definitely
everything.
preferred the trailing arm style. Plus, with how the frame is set up, I don't know how I would have gone about trying to mount A-arms in the rear.
And that is because of the mounts right here, right?
Yeah, so upper shock mount, shock comes down, trailing arm comes out. Throw it in for an example. Basically, trailing arm mounts here, shock mounts from here to here, and then the radius arms mount from here to the frame again.
And what's the ride height we're looking at back here?
Ride height should be somewhere around 13. It might be sitting around 12 or 11 after sag and everything, but plus once you actually put some power to the wheels, the weight transfer is going to push the back down some more. But
Cool.
that's where we're at.
All right, so we're gonna get to putting this together. So All right, so the front shocks are in, and these are the float 3s, and what we still need to pump them up. There's this little chamber. There's 2 chambers, actually. There's a main chamber, and on the side there's like a EVOL chamber, and you can adjust the pressure in the shocks for the travel you're looking for. We're looking for approximately a 13-inch ride height in the front, give or take a little. There'll be some sag once the driver sits in anywhere from 150 to 250 pounds, depending on who's driving. There'll be some sag, so those will account for that. And Curtis right now, he's working on getting the rear float 3s in, and just like the front, these also have a 2-pass chamber system where you have a main chamber and an EVOL chamber, and this lets you also adjust the pressure in these. And the rears, compared to the fronts, they have a 7.5-inch ride height, or a travel, and the fronts have a 5.5-inch. So he's just working on getting these mounted. We might have to, after we test it, put a little plate or something to cap this off to keep it from crushing in or bone, but we'll get to that after we do a little bit of destructive testing. So while Curtis was working on the rear trailing arms, RJ over here, he's been getting the front brake system and gas pedal mounted, and as you can tell, a little bit of brake fluid that drip. We have a slight leak in the chamber up here. It was cross-threaded, causing all the fluid to come out, but thankfully it didn't get on anything, so nothing seems compromised, but just a salty RJ. But other than that, it seems to be okay. Rack and pinion just got in, and RJ hooked it all up. It seems to be working okay, but he's gonna put the wheel in and see to make sure everything's still turning the way it should. All right, so there goes the rack and pinion. The next thing we need to do is we need to get on the rear trailing arms, but before we can do that, the motor needs to go back in. And once the motor gets in and the trailing arms get in, our next plan of action is probably going to be the all the panels. And once the panels are in, it should be drivable. So. Here's the plate we made. It's an adjustable aluminum plate, and it's for our pedals, for our brake and our gas. And the reason we made ours adjustable is they call for a fixed seat, and since that has to be stationary, we decided, because Jason and some of the other guys, they're a little taller, our height ranges are anywhere from 5'3" to 6'6", 6'7", so we wanted to add a little bit more length with our pedals. So these pedals, pretty sure they go about 6 inches backwards, so that way everyone can be comfortable when they're riding. But right now we're taking our pedals, and here's our brake systems for the front. We still need to take the rear brake and wire it through. It's going to be a hard wire, but for now we're using the we're going to mount up the front, and we have our custom brake lines that were donated by Spiegler Performance here in Dayton. They're a pretty cool set of guys, and they make some really good stuff. You should check them out. But so there's RJ and Curtis. They're working on getting our adjustable pedals mounted up and getting everything ran to the caliper all the way into the brake.